Chinuch and Shlichus. Are they a contradiction? Obviously not. So why is it in the 1950s Chinuch was booming? Yep, it was booming. What do I mean by that? Well, there's several things. To mention one, you have that if you are a mechanech, let's look at when we know mechanechim like Mendel Futter Fass and all these big names, right? They were mechanechim, not shluchim, and they are like, wow, they are looked up to. It's like these are the mechanechim, and mechanechim. I mean, it's a general term, but primarily mechanechim, they're much more of teachers than any other educator, right? It's mainly most mechanechim are teachers, and yet Shlichus was not known. The Frierdiker Rebbe barely started it in the 40s, and the Rebbe took it to another level, but it was not popular. It was not the thing. I mean, not to say that it wasn't, if maybe they were looked up to even more. I mean, especially nowadays, the shluchim that went in the 50s. But I guess that this is another aspect why chinuch was just from geschmack. I mean, besides the fact that you can live in your hometown most of the time, maybe the Rebbe would send you out, but at least you get to be al taras HaKodesh. You get to be in a holy bubble. But with shlichus, in the olden days, now it's nowadays too, but I'm sorry, you cannot compare. And I'll just state the obvious that why you can't compare for many reasons. Let's say number one, the communication, calling, texting, no social media. That's on a technology aspect, which is major. Nowadays, you don't feel like you're alone. You're so isolated when you have this type of technology. And also the availability of kashrus, especially if you're going far. And, it's so hard to find information about a place, to reach people. It's not popular there. People, even if you're going to a new place, you might meet someone there and be like, oh yeah, finally Chabad came to us. Whereas then it's like, what are you starting, Even nowadays, as we know, that's not only Chabad. So what's interesting is that it doesn't look that way now. And I believe that it wasn't drastic, unless you call 70 years a drastic quick change, but I don't think 70 years is a quick change. So here was Chinuch, Mechanchim, and here was Shluchim, in how, in the aspect of wanting to be a Shliach and wanting to be a Mechanich. So here's Mechanich, that's the thing you want to be, and it was Geschmack. Shlichus was you didn't want to, and the Rebbe had to push you to do it. And over the years, it went like this. Why? When the Rebbe said to do Shlichus, the Rebbe says it's needed, the Jews need us. Is that meant to take away from Chinuch? And by the way, we could talk about it in this podcast. It's not just for Chinuch. Like when you go out on Shlichus, you take away on Chinuch. It applies to everything. Everything. How can you be a chassid if you're not a mensch? Derech, eretz, kodmah, letorah. What? I don't think, for the most part, and I say the most part, 90% at least, we don't do it on purpose. I believe it's a natural nature tendency of human beings that we like the newness. You want to hop onto the new train. And it's boring to keep the basics, the foundation. So we could explore other topics, which I'm very excited to talk about, specifically Derech, kodmah, letorah. But let's look at Chinuch and Shlichus for a second. Let's focus on that. And the Rebbe said many new things to do. That's not taking away from what is already the basics. Like how we are Shvi L'Rishon, that we are not on our own generation, we are a midget on the top of giants. I'm not putting down our generation. I think our generation is amazing. Like we know how much Rabbeinu looked in our generation. But my point is that we are a continuation. We are not a new thing. There is a different focus. There's a difference between a focus and dropping the rest of it. We are focusing on Mashiach. I mean, Mashiach was always a thing. Now we're just focusing on it. The Rebbe didn't take away. The Rebbe took away a few things. One of the famous ones is meridos, bitterness. Maybe we'll get into that. I don't, not in this podcast, but the Rebbe didn't take away the chinuch. I mean, we know the Rebbe spoke very, very much about chinuch, but I believe one of the reasons why it's been going down is because it's not new. It's not the new thing. It's not the popular new thing. There are other reasons we can say, but let's just focus. So the common denominator, now maybe we can go to other subjects. The common denominator is this idea of when something new comes, you forget about the old things. So I mentioned Derech, eretz, kodmah, letorah. Derech, eretz, kodmah, letorah. I think it's the line is so beautiful in the sense of how vague it is, because it could apply to so many things. If you're learned, you know how a lot of times that Derech Eretz could mean how to say this in a proper way. It could refer to having intimate relations. It's called Derech Eretz many times in Torah. I believe it says that in the Haggadah also uses that similar term. But so let's unpack this. Let's dive into this Derech Eretz thing. And we'll mention a lot of topics that I think it's too much to just get in. Like we can get really lost when getting into these topics. But let's start from the beginning, when we're young, when we're first going to school. Also, and this also ties into, again, the chinuch aspect. I believe it used to be that the teachers, the mechanchim, and also has to do with how the education is at home, but mainly the mechanchim, they didn't just teach children how to learn, which I'm stressing that because unfortunately I believe that's what is mainly done nowadays, talking from my own experience. And even I would just say, actually, I won't get so personal, but in general, I did not see, it was, if anything, I saw it stressed, what is a good child? That is someone who learns a lot. I think it's a whole topic in itself. Now, I guess this podcast will be this common denominator of, again, hopping onto the new trend. And obviously we've heard of these terms, and we think it's something outside, but I'm saying, no, it's in Chabad too. We're doing the same thing. We're always hopping onto the new train. I already said it. I won't say it again. So again, as a child, so back in the day, as chinuch, I believe the mechanchim not only taught to learn, which, by the way, again, another thing is that all you really need to do is know how to learn. Once you know how to learn, why are you still having teachers? Maybe there's another aspect of encouragement. But I think it's unfortunate, a big waste of parents' money. But getting controversial over here. Why are we still, like, I can say for myself that a lot of time of my years, like let's say Chumash, for example, like I knew how, like, a lot of words in Chumash in the earlier grades. I didn't need to learn it. Like I know the words. I can learn on my own. Maybe I'm not mature enough. So is that what it's about? Maybe I mentioned another podcast of really controversial here about what I believe a good system for school would be, and that's huge. We could talk about that. But to get off topic, so we have teachers, again, going back to earlier, the previous generation, in the 1950s, whatever. So they taught the kids Derech eretz. Derech eretz with a way of life. And that's even, like I said, being a mensch before being a chassid. So it's both, which I believe both are lacking. I mean, there's a little bit, but definitely not, I believe, not enough. And like I said in my previous video, it's not even the way to live as a Jew. I don't even think that's like that is the most important thing. I mean, Torah is also very important, but Derech eretz kodmah letorah. Derech eretz kodmah letorah. And to live a Jewish lifestyle, that is super important. And I believe, just like when it comes to learning, once you know how to learn, why do you still in school? Just for motivation? I think you can find a better alternative. Also, instead of trying to push on learning, just make the child, the student, love Yiddishkeit. Make them love to learn. And once that happens, they can do it on their own. And especially nowadays, again, to save parents money, if they even to know how to learn, you don't need teachers. Nowadays, technology is there to teach you how. The only thing technology can do for you, and even in technically it could, is the will to be there for you, to show you that Yiddishkeit is the thing for you, Hasidishkeit is the thing for you. You want this. I mean, technology can convince you in an intellectual way. So even that aspect, but they tried making this craziness of AI friends and talking to you, but it's not real. They don't have a soul. No matter how advanced technology will get, it won't have a human soul. This is also going to the topic of marriage. Is that you're connecting to the soul. You're not connecting to anything. So too also with relationships, as a relationship, also as a teacher-student relationship. You don't have relationships with technology. As smart it will be, or able to help you a lot, you don't have relationships. So I believe, going back to a school, that would really, the school should teach, educate, is the will to want to be a Yid and to do Hashem's will. And in Chabad, the will to do the Rebbe's will. And once you have that, just get technology to do the rest. You save a lot of money. You save a lot of issues. And we can work on also obviously having friends and communicating. That's a separate point, but that could I'm sure there's a better alternative than what we have now.